my favorite personal experience, I don't know if I would position it that way, but rather kind of my favorite point in the Warcraft universe or the Warcraft lore and history. It's an interesting one. I don't know if anybody else will talk about this, but my favorite is the Thrall Origins story, basically where, as a baby, when his parents were killed, Dorothan and his mother were killed, that Blackmore brought him into human care and basically raised him in kind of the human environment and trained him to be as savage as an orc could be, but also be as cunning and smart as a human. And the whole thing of him coming out of that and finding escape through a human girl, and then ultimately, reuniting the clans, that to me was one of my favorite stories within there. And I know that when we were originally doing Warcraft Lord of the Clans, we ultimately didn't do it, but that was one of my favorite stories, and one that I hope we highlight more in the future. And certainly, there's a lot of other points that are special. Certainly playing the game with my friends and what have you, and meeting people online. But I think for me, I kind of wanted to focus on a point in the history or lore of the game that really was special, and I love that.
I think the moment that really made Warcraft special to me was when we went to announce the product of Warcraft 3, and we were over in London at the time, and we were in a packed room of reporters that wanted to see what we were doing next. And not only were they blown away by what we were showing, but they were really amazed at the depth of the universe and that we were going to be able to tell a story. And there were so many people in the room that we actually had to repeat the conference to be able to show it twice. So my favorite moment as a player predates me even working at Blizzard. I was actually starting in the games industry at Interplay Productions, and Warcraft 2 came out, and we were playing the game pretty much all the time. And I was one of the best players of the company, and my boss, Brian Fargo, one of the founders of the company, he bet on me against the top player in the 3D department. And we ended up playing this best of 3 series in front of the company, and with my boss steering over my shoulder the entire time. And luckily, through some grunt rush magic, I was able to win the best 2 out of 3 games.
So there are a lot of moments in World of Warcraft and Warcraft lore from previous Warcraft games that I would consider to be really special moments. All the way back to when I first played Warcraft 1 a long time ago and saw in Orcs vs. Humans the water elementals and the demons being summoned in that game, and thought that it was just really cool and kind of captivated my imagination. But more than anything else, as far as an epic storytelling experience goes, I would have to say that when Arthas Menethil committed patricide in the Warcraft 3 games, where he kind of fell into the grip and took over his role as the Lich King, it was probably the most epic experience for me. It really made me realize that you could tell an amazing story and really kind of create something more than just a game with the Warcraft universe. Well, one of my probably favorite experiences within a Warcraft game is, interestingly enough, during the early alpha stages of World of Warcraft, where I really first got to see the amazing transitions that were being done in World of Warcraft, crossing the boundary between Elwynn Forest and Westfall, and seeing how the landscape changed and the world changed and the color palettes changed and the whole feel and vibe of the world changes as you cross from one area to another. Really stood out for me as a special moment in both experiencing it as a player and also experiencing it as a developer, really seeing that Azeroth as a world was going to come to life by having these amazing transitions between zones.
I don't actually think that it was a moment. I think it was many moments throughout the years. I think that one of the first ones for me was when Bob Davidson made the ruling long ago with Warcraft 1 that we wouldn't just put out 50,000 copies. We put out 70,000 copies, and everybody was like, we were kind of afraid that it wasn't going to go anywhere, and it actually did very, very well. And we sold out, so that was a really good one. The thing for me with all of our games is I'm because of the early years I just meticulously went through everything. I love it when, like, one of our RTS games like Warcraft or StarCraft or all those are over and everybody leaves the game, and then I go back in to whatever level we're playing and I just strip everything. I take all the trees, I take all of the Vespian gas, I just take absolutely everything out.
I'd say the moment I realized the Warcraft universe was something very special was when we worked with Coke in China for the first commercial, and we went to Shanghai and we went and toured all the game rooms, and everybody was playing World of Warcraft. And we're out on the street and there were billboards for World of Warcraft, and there were big plastered artworks of World of Warcraft on the sides of buses, and we were going, wow, this is amazing. We go halfway around the world and here are all these people enjoying something we created, and it was just mind-boggling, you know. I'd say the moment that stands out in my mind is from Warcraft 3. Arthas coming home and claiming the throne from Tyrannus. That to me was just, what a moment. What a moment. Amazing.
Well, this is kind of the opposite of that in a way, but it's a fun story. So I was having lunch with Matt Samia and Chris Metzen, and this was back in the day when WoW was still really just kind of a rough idea. It wasn't even very far along in the development process. And so I knew a little about the type of game that they were going for. And I said to them, you know, guys, this whole WoW idea, I don't know that it's got much potential. I don't think it's going to make it. So now looking back in retrospect, I was definitely wrong about that. But it's kind of a fun story. Now that WoW is further along in development, I can see that, I got it all wrong.
The moment that I realized the Warcraft world was special when I, was probably first year working at Blizzard Entertainment. Alan Adham was the president at the time, and he asked me to play this game that they had been working on. And to me, it looked like a chess game. I'd never played PC games. I was always into things like Super Nintendo and those types of games. And I sat down, played it, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. This is going to be weird. When I finished playing the first game, I remember looking up and going, where's Alan? I gotta grab him, where is he? And thinking to myself that it was the funnest game I had ever played on PC/any console. And thinking to myself like, whoa, this could be something big, you know? And then seeing the reaction that it had, you know, I think it was a sleeper. It took about 6 to 7 months for people to even realize that there was something out there that was actually fun to play. And thinking to myself like, yep, we had lightning in a bottle right there. When I realized that this universe was specifically special, I think was Warcraft 3. I had been playing the single-player campaign. We had just finished the game, and I had time on my hands, and it's a great way to cool down and just experience the game firsthand instead of thinking about it from a making it standpoint. And it was Warcraft 3, and Arthas had just, I think he had just denounced Uther, and he told him that this was an act of treason. And it was the moment that Arthas actually went in a different direction. And I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, we're actually telling stories for real. And I'm really caught up in this world. And I just remember getting chills even sitting there and watching this little in-game cinematic and thinking to myself, like, my God, what an incredible moment we've created right here. And it's absolutely stuck with me.